lots of other things. And I counted, and there were 357 individual markers in the hands.
Oh, my goodness. And is that vary from left hand to right hand, or would there be more markers on one of maybe your dominant hand? I don't know.
Well, you can look at your own hands and probably answer that question yourself. The right hand and left hand are different. There might be a lot of similarities, but they're different. And
they are?
They are different. Yeah, the right hand is more about how you are, how you appear, how you're designed to be in the world more publicly. And the left hand is how you're designed, how you appear, and how you act in close relationships. So you might have one type of heart line on your right hand where you're very gregarious and outgoing and spontaneous and fun. And then on your left hand, you might have a more reserved, more stoic heart line, which could mean when you first meet somebody, you're all in and very emotionally available in the relationship. And then as you get to know somebody better, you find that you need more privacy. You need more time alone. There's a little change in going, from an outward relationship to more of an inward or intimate relationship. So lots of fun things that you can do with, the 4 different heart line types and how that plays out over time. And over 2 different hands, you might have all 4 on 2 different hands. And boy, isn't that interesting?
Wow. Well, you hit me on the nail on the head right there with my thing in relationships. I'm probably pretty open and gregarious initially, and then I usually kind of settle down and do need some time to myself to think, many times. And, the relationship, doesn't necessarily always provide for that, so you're always having to kind of work against your type in some cases, I'm sure. Does this, by the way, vary if if your dominant hand might be left-handed or right-handed? Does that make any difference?
In the research that has been done and in Richard Unger's, 30-plus years of studying the system, there hasn't been any real correlation with left-handedness or right-handedness. The stronger correlation is right hand, outer world, left hand, inner world. Wow,
that is fascinating. Can we talk a little bit, Michelyn, about Richard Unger, some of the information you would know about him as well, and how he kind of became one of the premier practitioners in this area?
I would love to. I have huge admiration and respect for Richard. He has one of those exceptional heart lines, and I don't think he would mind me telling people this. But before I tell you about him, I just want to tell you a little bit about his heart line. His heart line fuses with his head line, and that's the 3rd major line in the hand that we haven't talked about yet. But it starts on the thumb side, and then it moves over towards the pinky side of the hand, and it's in between the lifeline and the heart line. So you can look at it and see what that looks like, and it's short or long, curvy or straight. So Richard's headline and heart line are combined. So when you look at his hand, instead of seeing 2 separate lines, and some of the people listening to this show might be confused about where their heart line is because they don't see a separate heart line. They see it combined with the headline. And it's a straight line that goes from one side of the hand all the way across to the other. So we call this a simian crease, and there are other scientific names for it. But it's when the head and the heart are combined. So the emotional system and the intellectual or problem-solving system of the head are fused into one. Now, for most of us, something like 97% of us, those are separate systems, and we can be in an emotional state or we can be in an intellectual state. We can be thinking about something or we can be feeling about something, but we can tell the difference. Mm-hmm. For someone with this marking, the simian crease we call it, they're the same thing. So when they're thinking about something, they're happiest when they're also feeling about that same thing. And when they're feeling something, they're happiest when there's a challenge or a mental sort of puzzle to figure out around that emotional issue. So it's a sign of intensity because the energies of those two systems are combined, and these people are intense. and people are probably looking at their hands and their buddies' hands and their partner's hands and looking for someone who has a simian crease, and they're not very common, so you might have to look around. But find somebody. I challenge everyone listening to this show to find someone with the simian crease in their hand and just go around, the restaurant or the bar or the workplace looking at people's palms, looking for that straight across line, and tell me then if they aren't one of the most intense people that you know.
There you go. Boy, have you got some really great stuff to do at a cocktail party from this point on.
Oh, you bet. This is the best cocktail stuff, cocktail party information. You bet. Icebreakers, yes, definitely. Pickup lines, you name it.
Oh, there you go.
These intensity lines usually indicate someone who can burn the midnight oil. Once they get focused on a project, they don't want to give it up until it's done. They need actually a mission. They need something that combines, their intellect and their passion in one thing.
Wow.
And for those people who find that one thing, life makes sense. Life makes sense to them. And Richard Unger is one of those people who found a used hand analysis book in a bookstore when he was in college and picked it up and read it, and he found his mission. And he spent the last 30-plus years studying hands. I believe to date he's read over 70,000 pairs of hands.
Wow.
He's taken every I'm just going to say gypsy fortune-telling, line out there, and actually studied what is the scientific basis of this line, and how does this apply in the person's life? What does this mean? How can they make friends with that? How is it challenging them? And he's created this incredibly complex, accurate system of reading hands and also of reading fingerprints.
Oh, really?
So fingerprints are lifelong. They're set 5 months before birth, and they never change. And what makes his system of life prints unique is that he adds fingerprint information to the other markings in your hand, so he can talk about things like life purpose, life lesson, life school. These are hand analysis terms we use to talk to people about how can you live your life in such a way that will bring you the most satisfaction, meaning, and joy. So it's very, very powerful. Richard is a powerfully focused, mission-driven man who I've had the honor of learning from directly for the past 6 years. And he is the head of the International Institute of Hand Analysis. It's based in the Bay Area. He lives in Sausalito.
Oh,
so wonderful man, yes, and highly, highly skilled.
And first of all, let's make sure that people know how to spell Unger. It's Richard Unger, and it's how do you spell that, Michelyn?
Unger.
Okay, so people can check that out on the internet, I'm sure. And so he is one of those folks who has the combination of the headline and the heartline that creates what you call the simian crease. Is that kind of how you would describe it?
Yes, that's the name that we've given it. It really doesn't reflect what it means. But yeah, it's just that straight across line across the palm. And I'd love for people to send me pictures if they found somebody, in the bar or at church on Sunday tomorrow morning, or at home sitting around the table. If they find somebody with a simian crease, take a picture of it, and send it to me. That would be so fun to see how many we can get, because they're very rare, very rare.
That would be great. And matter of fact, they could hopefully tell you, not necessarily the person's name necessarily, or maybe their first name, but where they live. That would be interesting to find out which country they're from, if that makes any difference to you as far as statistics go. And also, they would take just a picture with their cell phone, sounds like, and then they would email it to you. How would they get it to you?
Yeah, they email it to me at liveyourpurpose@Michelyn.com. liveyourpurpose@Michelyn.com, and Michelyn is Michelyn.
Wow, that would be fun for you to get some of those inputs from around the world. I think we could send people out and go on a little mission here for you, like a scavenger hunt,
A simian scavenger hunt. I love that. I love that.
Kind of catchy. I like it.
I've made a sort of mini study about people with simian crease. I don't have that myself in my hands, but my daughter does. And when I first discovered that early on in my hand-reading career, I was so excited because it is so rare. And she's definitely qualifies on the intensity of focus scale. She loves to get into something and then stay with it. And conversely, sometimes it's a little challenging to get into focus for her. It's like finding that thing that engages the head and the heart. And then once you do, boom, you can't make her go to bed. She might be up all night.
Yeah.
But it's been a really good asset for her in college, and she'll be a senior in college this fall, and she's just accomplished so much. I mean, beyond what other mortals can do with a double major and a minor, and jobs and internships, and she's a full-time athlete for the school, and I think that part of the reason why she's able to accomplish so much is because of her simian crease.
Yes, well, that would make a whole lot of sense. And it's kind of interesting. You and your husband would have had to... Does this happen to do with DNA at all, the mixing of the parents and the DNA, that they would come up with a certain thing? Or is this just a random thing that happens periodically about the simian crease?
That's a really good question. I wish I had the definitive answer, but I don't. I know from looking at my own daughter's hand, for example, I don't have a simian crease. My husband doesn't have a simian crease. I don't know that any of my parents or or my husband's parents had that either. So I couldn't say that it's a genetic predisposition or that it's handed down. In fact, fingerprints even can be very, very different within a single family. Sometimes you'll see, say, a mother and a daughter that have very similar hands. Maybe the shape of the hands is very similar. Maybe they look a lot alike and they're built alike, and so they have the similar type hands, but their fingerprints are completely different. So it seems like there's some randomness there, but there's probably a scientist out there that would beg to differ. I really don't know the answer to that.
Wow. Something just really hit me here when you were talking about that. What if your fingerprints and or your handprints are passed down if you believed in past lives, or the idea of living again in another era? I'm wondering if that is how it gets passed on to the new souls that are born out there. If it's not genetic, then it would be interesting to track down how it actually happens.
Wow. That